It's official, folks. Vince Carter's jersey will be retired by the Toronto Raptors, and this is a massive decision from the Toronto Raptors front office. Obviously, Vince Carter is a legendary Toronto Raptor. However, he had an ugly falling out with the fans and the franchise, and frankly, a lot of fans believe Vince Carter isn't the most deserving player in Toronto Raptors history, as deserving of being the first ever jersey retirement by the organization. So we're going to break down the newest report, when it's going to happen, and how the fan base is feeling about Vince Carter's jersey getting retired, being the first ever jersey retirement despite all of the history and baggage that has come along with Vince Carter's Toronto Raptors legacy. So lots of stuff to dive into, but before we do, folks, again, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single update regarding this Toronto Raptors team, because again, even in the offseason, even the dead point of the NBA, it's coming back around in the next couple of weeks. We do have some news to cover, and this is, a big one. It's been something that's discussed for years, and it's Vince Carter's jersey getting retired. And Josh Lewenberg confirmed that this is happening today, as essentially news came out that the Raptors will retire Vince Carter's number 15 jersey when they host the Sacramento Kings on November 2nd, sources tell TSN. Nearly 26 years after scoring the first basket at the Scotiabank Arena, Vince Carter will be the first player in the franchise's 30-year history to have his jersey go into the rafters. Now, I've talked about Vince Carter a ton on this channel, as a guy that definitely is a legendary Toronto Raptor. I don't want to take anything away from Vince Carter, and I've also forgiven him for the ugly falling outs, for the ugly end to his Toronto Raptors career. But I have maintained on these videos that yes, he's a legendary player. Yes, maybe the Toronto Raptors franchise. I don't really agree with this, but there is a world where maybe we end up the way the Grizzlies if Vince Carter isn't one of those legendary players. But again, I think, that's a little bit overstated by some people in our comment section. But before I kind of give my opinions and get my thoughts out there, Vince Carter is, in terms of the positives, in terms of the highs that he provided for this Raptors franchise, is deserving of a jersey retirement, especially a franchise that doesn't have necessarily the history in terms of a team like maybe the Celtics, the Lakers, more established kind of team. Vince Carter is one of the more monumental figures in Toronto Raptors history, so the highs that Vince Carter provided definitely are deserving, do warrant a jersey retirement. What I've maintained, what I have stated is I didn't want to see Vince Carter be the first ever jersey retirement, because that is a big thing. That is a monumental part of Toronto Raptors history. And yes, we can look at the stats and people can bring them up, in regards to Vince Carter being a guy that did put up some ridiculous numbers for the Toronto Raptors, gave us our first proper playoff run, was the first actual star for this team. I know he had 27 point per game, season 24, in a league where it was a lot harder to get, those high numbers. Not saying the league was better, but the rules and the structure and things, that's a very impressive feat. What Vince Carter did, during that 99 2000 season, 01 season, 02, lots of solid stuff there. However, you can see at the last tenure of his Toronto Raptors career, the numbers went down a little bit. He wasn't there for the Toronto Raptors for a crazy extended period of time, but essentially, was dealing with some injuries in 02-03. The team started losing some more games and stuff, averaged 20 points per game, so still not bad, but got a little bit ugly there. But then you see in that 05 season, where half the season he played with the Toronto Raptors, averaged 16 points per game. 16 points per game, then a trade immediately happened. So a trade ended up going down, and you see Vince Carter's stats just absolutely shoot up from 16 points per game to 27 points per game for his new team. So that's, no injury excuses, no stuff like that. And Vince Carter has directly had quotes coming out, kind of bagging on the Raptors franchise. And yes, there's two sides to the stories. The Raptors front office was absolutely incompetent, was absolutely incapable of managing this team, and deserves a lot of the blame in regards to this situation falling apart, but Vince Carter did not handle this very well. Literally came out in a quote following his departure from the Toronto Raptors. Essentially, when John Thompson did an interview with him, asked Vince Carter if he pushed himself as hard as he should have in Toronto. He says, in years past, no. Essentially, he was acquired by the New Jersey Nets on December 17th. I was fortunate to have the talent, and you get spoiled when you're able to do a lot of things. You see that you don't have to work at it. So he came out and basically said he did not give all of his effort, give all of his full sort of effort for this Toronto Raptors team. ended up going to the Nets, played us in the playoffs, heartbroke me as a child. So that's a part of where my biases lean in regards to the Vince Carter kind of legacy. That's my formative years as a Raptors fan, watching Vince Carter cook us in the playoffs and all these things like that. And Vince Carter also came out and had some quotes, essentially, well, this isn't a quote, this is a report that came out back in, during Vince Carter's era. Essentially, the Tacoma News Tribune reported that over the weekend that 3 members of the Seattle Supersonics claimed that Carter intentionally tipped off the Sonics bench to a Raptors inbounds play late in the game for the two clubs on November 19th. So essentially, Vince Carter was a guy that in his last days with the Toronto Raptors came out and was telling the other teams to play. So late in games, they were able to defend and get the win. And then the Toronto Raptors ended up losing those games. And it's a big sort of drama scene at the time. And then Vince Carter also came out in a quote publicly talking about one of the Raptors reporters were saying, oh, Raptors fans want to see you dunk. He wants to see you dunk. He says, I'm not dunking anymore. He doesn't want to give the fans any of that. So there were a lot of factors at play. The statistics, the direct quotes, him literally sabotaging games for the Toronto Raptors at the end of his career. And yes, fences have been mended. The Toronto Raptors franchise went from, the dumpster fire that it was to a team that won an NBA championship with Masai Ujiri there, with Kyle Lowry coming out there winning an NBA championship. And with that said, we don't need to be petty. We don't need to be out here holding hate in the hearts of Vince Carter. But to give a man that said all these things, did all these things, the first ever jersey retirement in Toronto Raptors history. Again, I don't want to take any of the flowers away from Vince Carter, but I don't think that that's the right decision from the Raptors franchise. We could have done this 5 years in the future. Once Kyle Lowry's retired, we want to give him his jersey retirement. Heck, give DeMar DeRozan a jersey retirement before Vince Carter. Give Kawhi Leonard a jersey retirement before Vince Carter. That's my sort of thought process in regards to this entire situation. I was shocked to see this here today. Again, I saw we were honoring his legacy, going back to the purple, all things like that. But the first ever jersey retirement, when you have a guy that's about to retire in Kyle Lowry who embraced this franchise. DeMar embraced it, Kyle Lowry embraced it, but then Kyle Lowry won us an NBA championship. He's publicly spoke publicly. And everyone talks about, oh, fences are mented. Everyone said this. Vince Carter's getting his jersey retired by the Nets. It's unright if the Nets did it first. Well, I don't know. I disagree with that. And the thing that left me the most sour taste in my mouth, because again, we're supposed to be at a point where people are apologetic, the fan base are turning on Vince Carter for doing all those types of things. Vince Carter, like months ago, came out and essentially said, I feel like I handled everything in the correct way in regarding to how he departed the Toronto Raptors. So he came out and said this months ago. After we have all these examples of just clearly really messy, really ugly sort of discourse, really just immature actions in regards to what Vince Carter did, leaving the Toronto Raptors. And yes, I do think it was warranted for him to leave. I'm not holding him against, I don't have the same distaste, the same way I may have for a guy like, I don't have any hate for Vince Carter, but, the level of disgust for the things that Vince Carter did in comparison to Chris Bosh, who just kind of left the Toronto Raptors. Left the team, spoke highly of them, wasn't happy. The team wasn't in a great spot, but Vince Carter sabotaged the team. He said he wasn't trying for the Toronto Raptors, all of those things. So, again, should his jersey be retired? Probably. But to be the first one, when you have guys, legacy lined up, like a Kyle Lowry, like a DeMar, heck, Amir Johnson's the number. I know, that's one of my bolder, crazier takes, but that's a joke before the comments start going crazy. But I don't know. It's I'm not jumping overjoyed about this, and I know the comments, and you can point in this section of the video are going to say, oh, you're young. Yes, I am too young to witness the highs, the positives of Vince Carter. Watch the dunk contest, all that stuff. Awesome. Legendary moments in Toronto Raptors history, but I don't know. I wanted Lowry's jersey to go up first, so that's how it is. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. You guys are best to make this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.